Alright, my review of Bloodborne. Oh my god, this is going to be a pretty tough one. Alright, so first of all, Elden Ring was my first Souls game, so basically this is my first time playing Bloodborne after playing other Souls game and other Souls-like game, like for example Lies of P, which I really liked, but Elden Ring was basically my first Souls game. So first of all, let's put the graphics aside. Alright, so when it comes to visual, you definitely feel the age of the game, but it's actually aged very well in general, and I think part of it is because it's a really beautiful and rich environment and also the art style itself. We also seen it, by the way, in Elden Ring, which doesn't really represent what people maybe might have wanted with a more realistic art style, but overall Elden Ring is one of the most beautiful games ever made in my opinion. Its art style is absolutely terrific. Same goes in Bloodborne. Still, if you bring something like that with more modern features like better lighting, for example, even ray tracing and higher fidelity, everything, and with 60 FPS, it could have been of course much better. The world itself is just beautiful, very gloomy, dark. It's kind of a blend of gothic horror and Lovecraftian cosmic horror and Victorian era aesthetics. So it creates a visually striking and kind of unsettling world that is both familiar and utterly alien, and it also feels very cryptic, which is similar to other From Software Souls games. And you can see it all around: the Gothic architecture, the Lovecraftian creatures, the Victorian era settings, the dark and oppressive atmosphere, the detailed environments, very detailed, and everything just leads to a very exciting, unique experience. Now, this is not an open world game, although there's some interconnected areas, and basically it feels a bit more claustrophobic, tight, and even scary. So those who love kind of horror games, I think, will really love these settings here in Bloodborne. So overall, 10 years after, it still holds on very well. It shows its age, but holds on very well. Now, regarding the setting and the story, the thing is that in this game, the story itself isn't shoved into the player, into their face. They are kind of encrypted and give you bits by bits. And in that aspect, it felt lacking for me because I didn't feel any character development and progression. Most of the time I was focusing on combat, and before I even kind of learned a bit more, the game ended. And the thing with this type of games, that pretty sure after that I read more about the lore, and I definitely understand it's much bigger than I thought. Now, when it comes to those games, it was the same with Elden Ring. I felt that basically I'm creating my own story. And I actually like the idea that not everything kind of shoved into my face, and basically kind of formatting my experience as I actually felt and wanted it to be. Yes, there are things of course related to your character and its development, but it actually leaves more room for you to kind of share your own story in the game rather than feel that it's very much scripted. Now, I need to be fair here. When it comes to games like that, I really don't care that much about the story. I love a little background, so I know kind of more or less what's surrounded me, but I really not into really deep story progression in type of games, so it really didn't matter to me that much. Now, the sound design in this game is amazing. The music, the sound effects, even one of the bosses actually designed it, so you need to hear where the voice of the boss is coming from and then try to search and go to the boss location. What? Where did he go now? Oh. What? What is this sound he's making? Yeah, that's the players. For sure. Yeah, here we go. So when it comes to sound design, of course, when you're talking about 10 years, it doesn't really matter. If the sound design was good back then, it will be good now. Yeah, there are of course some technology that helps improve that regarding 3D audio and so on. I mean, just listen to this. This dude means business. So honestly, after seeing this clip, I actually thought about that maybe it would be better to reduce the sound of the sound effects and actually increase the music volume. Kind of a afterthought. Music, sound effects, incredible. Alright, let's talk combat. This is the main thing in the game for me. This is the reason I play Souls game, because of the challenging combat. Now, I already covered in a previous video and talked about if the game challenging. Coming from Elden Ring and other Souls game, Bloodborne wasn't hard for me, even not hard at all. I mean, I probably failed at most like 3 times for each boss, whether in Elden Ring, for example, I failed many times for each boss. So it really matters if you play this game as your first Souls game or played in the past and have nostalgic feeling compared to if you play it right now as I did and played already previous games, more modern Souls-like games like Lies of P, for example, and Elden Ring. And unfortunately, the boss fights here, and not about the combat, but the boss fights are pale in comparison to what Elden Ring offers. It's just mind-blowing the difference. Actually, many of the boss fights, including what you see here, I felt that they were not fun, actually quite very underwhelming. Now, of course, there are some amazing boss fights, but the thing is the game is very short, and there are tons of bosses like Elden Ring. And for me, it actually just shows how well From Software has grown up when it comes to improving boss fights in Elden Ring compared to their previous titles. Still, we can't take away from the design of the bosses, which are incredible. I'm not talking about the design of the bosses, they are great and they're amazing here. Another good thing is that they feel different from each other, so each fight challenges you in a different way. So this is another plus thing that I really like about the different bosses. They don't feel the same. Bloodstarved Beast felt incredible and intimidating. It was so much fun with this beautiful high ceiling place. It was just a stunning boss fight. But to be honest, many of them were peeled down significantly compared to Elden Ring boss fight, like against Malenia and against Mesmer, what you see here. This is from Elden Ring DLC. The visual effects, the high contrast, the amazing beautiful use of colors. But of course, when it comes to Bloodborne, it was by design. The higher fidelity graphics, the 60 FPS, many of the boss fights compared to the one that I experienced in Bloodborne felt like they're in a league of their own. So when you're coming from Elden Ring, you do feel kind of a bit of disappointment. But I can definitely understand the choice, for example, with the colors not going too splashy, for example. It has its own unique atmosphere because of that. Now when it comes to mechanics, I felt it's a bit slower, but not slow as I first thought when I heard things about the game. The game is designed so good that I felt that, well, I can actually now enjoy play and with my favorite playstyle, like slow weapons, and I can actually dodge and then plan an attack, a slow attack, heavy attack, and use it. And I felt that it's useful here. Actually play this type of weapon with heavy attack throughout the game. It actually felt tight and accurate, and never for a second I felt that it felt bad. Well, maybe some camera issues here and there, but overall it felt amazing. Whether in Elden Ring, for example, if I try to use melee attacks, for example, let alone slow one, I can get punished easily, and you need to be very, very skilled in order to use many types of melee weapons in combat. I actually use Blasphemous Blade, which had kind of ranged special attack, which makes things much, much easier. Overall, my opinion, the combat is incredible as well. Keep in mind, if you compare it to Elden Ring had much more items and much more type of weapons and armor set and lots of different things. But again, basically Bloodborne feels more compact in that aspect, but it's not that bad, to be honest with you. I wasn't searching for another huge game like Elden Ring to play. It actually just was perfect for what I wanted. Can't see anything. Alright, let's talk difficulty. Okay, this is the thing. So, coming from Elden Ring and leaving Mimic aside, because Mimic in Elden Ring makes everything so much easier, because basically the boss is attacking another NPC and not you, and makes everything just piece of cake. So if you leave that mechanic aside, although you have ability to actually have some companions here as well, I didn't use them at all because I didn't need it. Bloodborne is way easier, and by that I mean way easier than Elden Ring. Now you might say, alright, Elden Ring was your first Souls game, but I did play several playthroughs, like 3 or 4 playthroughs, so I already got used to it. And of course I remember how it was at the beginning, but I remember that, when I got experience and I played it not in New Game Plus, but even straight from the beginning again, so I kind of understand how each one plays in terms of difficulty. Some of the bosses in Elden Ring were much harder, like Malenia, for example. I mean, forget about Blasphemous Blade and Mimic, for example. Try to finish her with just a melee weapon. Much harder than any boss here. With all these bosses, I was able to finish them like, sometimes first try, sometimes second try, or third try, nothing more. But again, if this is your first Souls game, it's going to be much harder for you. Those who actually, this was their first Souls game and have nostalgia about it and remember this is a very hard game because maybe it was their first game playing it. Now this is subjective, but there are things that are objective, including how the attacks are telegraphed, which are telegraphed very well in this game. The easing of the animation, the moveset. In Elden Ring you have some crazy combos coming at you, can't even remember all the movesets. I mean, for some of the bosses. Whether here I can remember all the movesets and I can even know when to dodge, and actually many of the attacks were actually pretty slow. This is why I could use basically a slow weapon attack with a heavy attack. And many of the bosses don't have something like the one hit you and you are gone, like I had in Elden Ring. I didn't even need to grind for anything. So yeah, basically, based on objective things and subjective, the game is much easier compared to Elden Ring. Now when it comes to attention to details, I'm not talking just the visual in the environment. The thing is that when you, for example, this is similar to when you listen, for example, if you want to try it, if a speaker is good, you want to hear good separation between the low, mids and highs. So to get a beautiful harmony that it's not kind of into your face and it's confusing and not clear, things need to be separated, both visually and with the sound. And in Bloodborne it is done almost to perfection, because everything, when you walk in the street and you hear a single sound, you feel terrified. Every single shot from the enemy, you can feel it. Every roar feels terrifying. Where there's a shot or a hit from a boss or an enemy, you immediately feel it and see it because of course of the high contrast compared to the scene. Of course, higher fidelity visuals and better lighting could make it even better, but still, considering the tech back then, it's just a great achievement. This is like high resolution gameplay experience right in front of you. Now this is very important also for combat. In some of the bosses I actually heard a subtle sound and was able to pinpoint that, alright, there's going to be an attack right now. Listen. Basically this little woo sound, tells you, well, something is coming. And it's very subtle, but these kind of cues really helps you out to understand what's going in the fight. Alright, let's listen again, and you can see immediately after projectiles come. I'm not even looking at the boss, and listen also how it goes well with the music. The amount of harmony that this game has is incredible. I don't know if I had to call it, but this is kind of a high resolution gaming when it comes to harmony of everything comes together so perfectly. Alright, let's talk exploration. In this game, the exploration was, for me, quite mediocre, to be honest with you. I mean, there are places, of course, you can find, although the gameplay, it feels like kind of linear, and there are ways to kind of get lost in the game as well, and some interconnected areas. And there are nook and crannies here and there, but again, when you come from Elden Ring, which is a kind of masterpiece when it comes to, again, open world game design, this is not an open world, but I'm just saying Elden Ring is, when it comes to exploration, when you have the freedom to design a big stage and mazes in the environment, you know what I'm talking about. It was okay basically, but nothing more. Now, second, I would say to the questing, it's kind of similar to Elden Ring. I actually found a few things which are supposed to be quests. Later on I learned that there are quests, but I didn't even get to finish them anyway. I got to finish the game without actually getting benefits from it. And again, this is because it's a very short game. You can easily miss so many things. This is why I didn't get probably different things and benefits from this game. Same goes, by the way, to the dungeons. I already realized that, before really I finished the game. I needed to basically, after that I read guides, and then I realized, oh, I actually missed that. Oh, what? Oh, there are some dungeons that I can do and all this stuff. And it's just basically, it's kind of enigmatic and cryptic that you can miss lots of things in this game. I will go to it, of course, in my second playthrough in New Game Plus, but yeah, basically, you can easily miss lots of cool things in this game, pretty easily. So if you're a completionist who just plan to play this game once, you know, you're better off looking at the guides and walkthroughs in order to not miss anything. I'm just saying. Because again, some of the things are quite significant, really cool weapons and other stuff. Just saying. I think that one of the most important things that when I jumped into Bloodborne, coming from playing other Souls game and Souls-like game, it felt different. And I think this is based of course on the game design itself, regarding level design, regarding the combat, the different weapons, the enemy design, the bosses design, the atmosphere itself. Overall, it just felt different compared to other Souls games that I play, and this is a good thing, because again, if you play a different Souls game, it's really nice when you play something that feels different, right? And Bloodborne actually felt like that. It didn't feel similar. There are similarities between this game of course and other Souls games from Software, but it did feel different overall. The same thing, by the way, I said with Lies of P. It felt, you know, similar but so distinct to other Souls games and designed so well in so many ways that I really enjoy it throughout, and this is actually one of my favorite Souls-like games of all time. Now regarding technicalities, of course From Software had all the time to polish things up. Still I had some camera issues with some of the bosses. I first was kind of worried about, you know, running out of healing potions, but it was pretty cheap to get from enemies. You can maybe at some point you could grind for it if you prefer upgrading your character and leaving less for other things. But I really like the idea that with Elden Ring it just kind of fills up automatically when you go back to a spawn point when you die. Because at certain situation you put less on the grind and more on the actual action. And the good thing, by the way, that it didn't feel grindy at all. Of course, playing at 30 FPS took me some time to get used to. I need several hours for my eyes to adjust. Before that I just couldn't bear it. It actually hurt my eyes. I just couldn't play it before. I tried in past. But basically if you suffer from the same, going from 60 FPS to lower frame rates, keep in mind it gets better when you play. Just play a few hours and you're gonna adjust to it to some degree, of course. It's not perfect. Also, some things with the world design felt a bit strange, like cut off like certain corners and alleys. Felt like, you know, somebody just mishmash several 3D models together to create something. They felt a bit awkward and out of place. Also, because of the game, you know, 10 years old game, it felt a bit, you know, lacking when it comes to lighting. I think this game can really benefit from high quality lighting, especially with everything is so gloomy. So even a single torch is kind of something, you know, great already. There's something going there. So especially with ray tracing, this is something that I really want to see. Bloodborne kind of a remaster with ray tracing and high quality lighting. Also, not being able to, I always need to go to the dream. I can't really transport from one place to the other unless I go to the dream location. Also felt a bit annoying. Also the fact that for some bosses I need to travel for several minutes sometimes in order to get to the boss. Something that I really liked in Elden Ring, where you just have a close spawn point. You can just go and fight and practice rather than spending, I don't know, like taking 3 elevators just to go up and get to the boss. Just kind of a waste of time. So they definitely solved it in Elden Ring, but definitely you can see that in Bloodborne. This is, you know, when you come from Elden Ring, you feel like, you know, oh, that's comfort. And then you come to this game and like, all right, now I need to walk like a minute or two just to get to the boss. Didn't feel good. So even looking at everything with zero nostalgia, and even considering the fact that it's 10 years old by now, this is a great game and a fantastic Souls game. It brings something new, it feels different. The combat feels amazing. But it doesn't come without issues and difficulty, as I mentioned. And this becomes even more prominent once you play other Souls games like, you know, Elden Ring, Lies of P and others. And this is why I can definitely understand 100% why people want Bloodborne Remaster. Another complaint, and I think this is quite a big one, the game is short. Too short, to be honest. I wouldn't mind a short, relatively short compared to Elden Ring, kind of a Souls game, but this was way too short. Pity. Bottom line, if you haven't played Bloodborne, or even if you haven't played Souls game before, this is definitely a more accessible game to start. If of course you take into consideration there is no mimic here, although there's some aids here and there for certain bosses. And if you're having trouble, there are lots of guides already online with some very powerful builds that make things much easier for you. Overall, a must play for sure. Thanks for watching.